Hi everybody, welcome to another session of Node.js. Today we'll learn about one of the most important and useful topic of Node.js. In this session we'll learn how to export the functionalities of a module. What are the different ways available to export these functionalities of a module so that the same functionalities can be used by other modules, and the difference between exports and module.exports. Let me jump to the Visual Studio Code. Let me start with an example. Let me create a JavaScript file called operations.js. In Node, each JavaScript file is called a module. Let me define a function called add text to parameters turns the sum of A and B. Let me define another function called sub. It returns the difference between these two parameters. Let me create another JS file called index.js. If I want to call the functions which are defined inside operations.js, how do I do that? If I simply write result and call the add function, pass two parameters, and try to print the result, what will happen? Let me run this file, node index.js. I'm getting an error. What is the error? It says reference error, add is not defined. So you cannot directly call a function which is defined in another module. To do that, I need to export these functions where it is defined, and then I can import the same function inside the module where I want to call them. So let me first export these functions. To export, there are different ways available. One method is like you simply write exports dot add, then exports dot subtract. That's it. So we just exported two functions. Now the question is, what is this exports keyword? I'll tell you after some time. Now these functions are exported. To import it, what I need to do, I need to simply write require in the path of the module where it is defined. This is operations. So here I just imported the functionalities which are defined inside operations.js. So what this require function returns? It returns an object which is the operations, and to call the add function, what I need to do? Me write sum is equal to, I write operations in the add function, then pass two parameters. Similarly, I can call the subtract function as well. It's like function called sub. Right. Let me print the result now. So dot log. Print the difference as well. So if I run the file, now you get the result, right? Now we are able to call the add function and the subtract function, which are defined inside operations.js. So if I repeat, we just exported this function using exports keyword and then imported the functionality using the require function, right? And called in this way. This is one method of calling the functions which are defined inside another module. So let me write another way of exporting this. What I can do, right, const to this, and so we should do this. So I define two different functions. So we can also export by assigning these functions to module.export. What is module.exports? Yes, we'll learn it shortly. So what I need to do, I need to add both these functions and assign this object to module.export. Now, here I have already imported this. Now, if I go and run this again, I see the same result. So I can call these functions using either exports keyword or module.export. So exports keyword I have to add multiple times. I have to add like export.add, export.solve like that. But in module.exports, at the end, you just include whatever you want to export. If I want to export only add function, we can just simply mention as add. But if I want to export multiple, like here add or sub both, then I just need to include in this way, right? While importing also, I have the options of importing all or importing only specific function. So here I can write like add or sub, or I can simply write add as well. And while calling, I can call directly like this. If I run this, I get the same result, right? Now we learned how to export functionalities of a module using two different ways. So now we are clear about the different ways of exporting the functions defined inside a module and how to import these functionalities into another module, right? Now let's learn about the keywords exports, module.exports, and the difference between exports and module.exports. So first we need to understand the module object in Node.js. In Node.js, the module object looks like this. It contains several properties like ID, path, exports, parent, and other properties. We'll learn about this exports property, which is present inside the module object. So whenever we export any functions, then these functions get added to this exports property. So in our example, we exported two different functions, add and subtract. So when they're exported, these two functions get added to this exports property. So let me help you understanding. Going to the Visual Studio Code, and I will show you directly over there. So I'm inside operations.js file, and I defined two different functions and exported these functions. Now, what I will do, I will print the module object here in the console. Let me open this file. You can see the module object, ID, path, exports. Exports property is nothing but it is an object and it contains two different functions, the functions that we exported, right? So if I add one more function, let's say function pass two parameters and it returns the multiplication of these two parameters. Now let me export this one as well. So now if I go ahead and print the module object, you can see all three functions are added to this exports property, right? Okay. Now, if I export in this way, exports.add, exports.struct, dot application, add one more function here, to find the division of these two parameters, and I'll remove this. So I just use the other method using the exports dot keyword. And if I print this, I see the exports property now. Now this exports property contains now all the functions defined. Right. Now we are clear like what is module object in Node.js and how the exports property gets updated whenever we export anything from a module, either using exports dot option or module dot export option. Now we are clear about the module object and the exports property and how this exports property gets updated when we export any function, right? So we have two different ways to export. One is using module.exports and other one is using directly the exports dot option. If I define it exports.add, exports.subtract, exports.application, and save it. Now if I print the module object now, it gives me the same result. You can see export property contain add, sub, and mul, all three functions. The question is, this exports keyword, is it the same property which is defined inside module object? The answer is no. This is a special variable which contains a reference to this property. Okay. So, for example, let's say after adding two different functions, add and subtract, if I assign something directly to this special variable, then I try to access this exports property, adding one more function. We run this. Now if I see the module object now, you can see it contains only two functions, add and subtract. Doesn't include this multiplication function because we assign directly to the exports keyword here. So the reference to this exports property is lost. Okay. Now, let me help you understanding this concept using a diagram. So in this diagram, you can see we have the module object, exports property present inside the module object. Now, exports variable, this contains a reference to this exports property defined inside module. Similarly, when you write module.exports, it is again a reference returned to the module. Okay. I hope it's clear. Now the next question is when to use exports and when to use module.exports. So you can export the functions by writing exports.add, exports.subtract, sub export dot multiplication, right? Multiple times. But when you are using module.exports, you have to write it once and just add all your function. But in case of exports, you have to write it multiple times, right? Now, it is up to the user how you use it. Use the export functionality and import it, right? Thank you, everyone. So please do like, share, and subscribe my channel so that you get the latest updates. Thank you.